Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Fit and Focus for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. My name is Angela Shurina. I'm a certified nutritionist, health nutrition, brain performance coach, and just someone with a lot of passion for helping you guys to learn how to use your brain better so you excel and succeed in all areas of your life. Brain is everything, guys, and everything that you do, your lifestyle, your nutrition, your exercise, your environment, it affects your brain, and the brain affects all of your decisions, all of your emotions, the quality of your work, how you show up every day, your motivation levels, your procrastination or non-procrastination. Everything is in the brain and how it functions as a machine, so to speak, and how you're able to manage to use it. Brain is quite sophisticated machine. They say it's the most sophisticated machine in the universe. And, when you buy a new phone or a computer or any piece of tech, you buy like a selfie light and it has a user manual. But our brain, it comes with none. And so we're kind of right now stumbling, getting some science, figuring out things about how the brain works, and then putting it into practice so everyone can use their brain better to ultimately design a life experience in the way that suits you, that fits you, that gives you the fulfillment and satisfaction, right? So this is what podcast is basically all about, and why for remote work and digital nomads. Well, I am one. I've been one for my entire life. That's who I work with the most, and that's the kind of world of work I knew for many years now. And I was talking to a friend yesterday about, why remote work and why digital nomads. I think this category of people has a lot of freedom, right? Once you start getting remote, once you start getting yourself into a digital nomad world, and maybe you have your own gig, maybe you have your own business, you start having all these freedoms. But freedom isn't always the best unless you know how to use it and how to structure your day and your work to be your best at work and at whatever you do, and also enjoy your life to the fullest, right? Very often people are like, oh, now I have this freedom and I can do what I want, when I want. But isn't always better to do things whenever, whatever? Not at all. Like sleep. If you don't schedule it, if it's irregular, your sleep gonna suffer, and the rest of your life gonna suffer too. If your nutrition is all over the place, same thing. Just because you can eat everything doesn't mean you should be eating everything if you are interested in your own well-being and success in life and just feeling good, right? I was talking to a friend about feeling good and food, and we agreed very acutely, like we almost repeated each other words at the same time, that the difference between like processed foods and happy feelings from processed foods and happy feelings from whole foods is when you eat processed foods, especially with a lot of sugar, flavors, and fat and calories, something that is very like flavor intense, and textures and experience and calories and all of it combined. When you have something like that, you get this like rush. It's like, oh, it feels so good, and it's almost like instantaneous, right? And it's almost like in a mild version, taking some drug that increases your pleasure hormones and pleasure chemicals in your brain and body. So processed food gives you that intensity right away, and that's why a lot of people love it. But then it lasts very little, and then you want more, and you feel like, well, now life is not as good because you don't feel that heat anymore. It's not as pleasurable. And because you can't be eating all the time or taking some sort of substances, that becomes unsustainable. And so most of your life starts feeling shittier because of those hits that you decide to choose to take from your food, right? Whereas compared to whole foods that we totally, kind of like, again, repeated each other words while sharing a meal. But whole foods give you that satisfaction, this like enough and good and peace and calm. And that's kind of feeling you get from eating delicious whole food based meals. And you don't get the hits, but you also don't get the lows. And your life looks better overall, not worse, because these meals are also nourishing and they deliver vitamins and minerals and all kinds of nutrients that we yet to learn about. And it makes you feel better now and long term. They invest into your long-term health and well-being. That's why eating whole food meals that naturally are rich in flavors when you know how to choose your ingredients. That's why it's so much better for your long-term well-being. You kind of more real, just like the food is. So that's a little bit of more philosophical or, mental health side of things, why processed foods really do not work for your well-being. Again, like you might get a hit right away, nobody's denying that, but is it really good for you long-term that you rely on those hits to get any pleasure and satisfaction in life? And let's continue on this theme of food and nutrition. Today is Friday, and I promised you a nutrition episode, and you're going to get one. So we started with mental health and how food increases. It gives you pleasure, like processed food gives you pleasure right in the moment. But then overall, people report increased anxiety levels, increased stress levels, and it actually been confirmed by study. So there are certain stress biomarkers, inflammatory biomarkers that increase stress in the body and in the brain. And all of these increase when you eat more processed foods. The more processed the food, the more often you eat. Also, like the whole foods and non-processed foods that you eat, the amount of that and the quality, it all plays into the degree of that, how much your stress levels increase from your diet. But the more processed foods you eat, the more stress that is measurable you're going to have in your body and in your brain. So the more stress you'll have to manage, and the more complex and difficult your whole life experience becomes, right? So this is one aspect of why processed food really not in your team. It doesn't work for you. It works against you long term. So stress, one, increased, confirmed by research, by data. Anxiety levels, people who eat more processed foods, and there's been recent analysis of different data. So people who eat more processed foods have their anxiety, all kinds of mental disorders, illnesses, or imbalances. They have higher rate, occurrences, and degree of that. So your anxiety levels go up the more processed food you eat. And some people say, well, once in a while, it's not a big deal, right? Like if I eat it, once a week, once in a couple of weeks. But to be honest, I don't really understand this logic. Like trying something out of experiment, having a spoon, of this dessert that you've never tried before. Yeah, I see the logic in. We love experiments. But having to have, feeling the urge, the need to have it at least once a day, once a week, that's a different kind of story. It means that you need it to manage your life, right? And needing it and wanting to try it, those are different kind of things. And also Andrew Huberman, he was talking about alcohol last week a lot. And he said this phrase that none is better than one. And for me, it's the same story. When people ask me, why don't you drink, a glass of something once in a while? Why don't you eat dessert? I'm like, why? I'm quite happy. I truly enjoy my food. I make whole food kind of things that taste like dessert without no added sugars. There's so much you can do with whole foods without having to make it process or giving you that rush, this dopamine hit. I get my pleasure from food. Like, we love food. Humans, any animal, we love food. And I get the pleasure of it. But again, it's more balanced. And I don't ever feel like I need a dessert to feel happy in my life. Like, I'm quite happy already. And I do a lot of fun things by myself and with friends. And that's why, you have hobbies or passions. So I never really understood that logic. And I think that came after I committed to eating only whole foods, just like our ancestors did, right? And then because you don't use any of those mood elevators, you learn how to manage your mental state and your emotional state without that. And I think in that you'll find power. But anyhow, the second piece of data and research, your anxiety level is going to increase and your confidence level is going to decrease because they're kind of proportional. The more anxious you are, the less confidence you have. when you eat more processed foods with more processed ingredients, things that you wouldn't find in your kitchen. Then we have the third aspect, memory and learning. People who eat more processed foods and less of other good foods, and that also is a proportion. The more processed foods you tend to eat, the less of good for you foods you tend to eat. So people who eat more of processed foods get problems with memory and learning. And that starts when you're a kid, when you're a teenager, you have better grades when you eat better, you have better mood control, more impulse control. So it all starts with food and it never finishes. It's the same for adults. For adults who get older, like all of us do, you get more instances, more chances of getting things like Alzheimer's, dementia. Basically, your brain stops working because it accumulates a lot of damage and a huge part of it is processed food. And the more people eat, the worse their brain works, the worse their memory is, the worse their learning is. And because of that, guys, your memory is worse. You are all that you remember. If your memory is not good, if you can't learn, your whole human experience is much poorer. You're not adapting to the environment, to changes. I think that's why also a lot of people are afraid of rapid changes, because the brain doesn't really work that well. And so it's hard for the brain to learn, to adapt to new things, to be more plastic. And that's why people find it very discomforting, the change. Like, I personally love change. I love when things are different and I learn rapidly and I love this whole process and my brain loves it. Right? But if your brain is not functioning well, and there is data and research, a lot of it and more coming out, that the poorer your diet is, the worse your learning, your memory abilities are, and the worse you adapt to life and the less you enjoy it, right? So this is the third aspect. Memory and learning get worse with poor diet. And again, the proportion of the diet and the whole lifestyle, of course, matters. But again, my perspective is the same. None is better than one. Why would you want to poison yourself if you can enjoy other foods that do not poison you and also give you pleasure and satisfaction? So number 4, your energy and fatigue levels. The more processed foods you eat, the more shit your body has to work through to eliminate out of your body, the more energy intense that process gets of getting out of your body stuff that makes the work of your body more difficult. The more of that is happening on a daily basis, the more fatigue you're going to feel, mental and physical, and the less energy you're going to have. And of course, that's going to affect all aspects of your life. Energy is everything, guys. Emotions, your learning, your life experience, it's all about energy. A lot of people have kind of a little bit dimmer personalities because emotions and expressing your personality and taking actions to express your personality, that actually takes quite a lot of energy. So when your brain knows that your energy resources are kind of suboptimal, you're not going to have all this expression. You're not going to be all that outgoing or getting out there and trying new things, right? And connecting with other people that much and expressing yourself in a more expressive way. All of that requires energy. And with more processed food in your diet, you have less and less of that energy. Again, the amount, the kind of lifestyle you have besides that, the amount of stress you have besides the stress from food, that all matters. And because of that, degree is different to which food affects your energy levels, but it's still happening on a bigger or smaller level. So this is factor number 4, why food is important in your life experience and why processed food should be, very tiny percentage, if any, of your eating experience. And the 5th aspect of food and your mental performance and health and in general life quality, the 5th aspect of that is that your reward system gets rewired and your motivation levels, your resilience, how you are able to persist in the face of challenges with your long-term goals and get things done and progress, even when things are challenging, and still have the motivation to persevere, to keep going when things get hard, and they will always get hard when you start working on anything, right? Your reward system, choosing this moment satisfaction and some quick reward over long-term goals and over long-term objectives, like that reward system gets rewired the more processed food you get. And I want you to understand the very deep implication of that. A lot of people find it difficult to stick with anything long term. Exercise program, or building a business, or building a relationship, or learning, let's say, a language or new career. A lot of people find it difficult to stick with anything on a daily basis, and that's what requires to build something long term, because the reward system isn't working all that well anymore. And one of the reasons is diet. Because the more processed foods you get, the easier you make it for your body to kind of get the satisfaction in your pleasure circuitry. The easier you make it for your body, the less your brain wants you to work for anything else. It's like, you get really fast reward that makes your brain feel really good, like all these dopamine and all the good feel chemicals in your brain. So you eat some cookie and you feel good instantaneously. And then once you start working on something long term and it doesn't feel all that good when you're going through challenges, your brain is like, I don't want to do that. Let's just eat a cookie. It's going to make us feel better. And you're working on your health goals, and all you do now is eat cookies, and you forget about your long-term goals because they don't feel that good. They don't feel that easy, right? It rewires this whole system, and you don't notice it day by day. But at the end of a week, a month, few years, it's going to make a huge difference, guys. I can tell you that since I quitted sugar, like zero sugar, and I started to actually address mental, emotional, and business and all kinds of challenges in my life started to move forward at a much faster rate, and I don't repeat my patterns anymore. I don't do the same mistakes anymore. Like, I don't notice it anymore. I used to notice it all the time. Like, the same things would occur again and again and again in a different scenario. And now it doesn't happen, because every time a thing comes up, I address it, because I don't allow myself any other escapes, right? In short-term pleasures. Now, of course, I take days off. I have breaks, but those things, they don't actually make you deny the challenges in your life. They kind of like give you the power, the strength to continue. Whereas things that boost, that spike your things like dopamine or your endorphins, those like very pleasurable chemicals in your brain, things that spike them, they make you kind of forget about the problem for a moment. And they trick your brain into thinking, well, you don't have to address this problem. You can just, get those hits with whatever consistency, and you'll be just fine. And you start repeating the same stuff in life while eating your cookies. So this is kind of the implications that you would see in people who engage, not just, in eating a lot of processed foods on a regular basis, but also in indulging in more, so to speak, guiltier pleasures like alcohol or smoking or drugs like that. They actually boost your dopamine and that pleasure hit by a lot more than food ever would, right? But I'm not going to get into drugs here. Of course, I'm just saying that food kind of does a lot of those things on a much smaller scale. But the food, because you eat it every day, several times a day, in pounds every day, it does have profound effect at the end of the day. Your stress levels, your anxiety levels, your memory and learning abilities, your energy and fatigue, and your reward system gets completely screwed up, rewired, and they are not in their natural state. And that's why you want to take care of your nutrition. And it's not that complicated. To be honest, it's very simple. The more I spend time in nutrition coaching, the more I realize how simple that freaking thing is. You eat a lot of fruit and vegetables, as you've been told for many months and years, right? As much as possible, not dipped in sugar and all kinds of weird oils, right? With all kinds of stuff, right? Just fruit and vegetables in the less processed form. You eat your protein at each meal. Whatever your protein is, just make sure that you get a balanced profile of amino acids. Usually if you eat animal protein, that's much easier. If you eat plant-based protein only, it's going to get tricky. So you really need to watch out, maybe supplement with some protein shake, etc. and really think about your menu. Consult someone like a professional to help you to design that balanced menu. So protein at each meal, right? At each meal you eat fruit or vegetables, like a lot of colors at each meal. I'm talking about a regular menu of 3 meals a day. You eat protein, good amount of that, 30, 40, 50 grams, depends on your size, activity levels, gender, etc. And your essential fats that usually come with your food. Essential fats are omega-3s and omega-6s, so you get those by eating fatty fish like salmon, like sardines, mackerel, etc., and things like walnuts, especially rich in those essential fats, omega-3s and omega-6s. That's why I always tell people, whoever those people are, my friends, people I work with, eat a generous handful of walnuts every single day, and your brain will be really thankful to you for this. And then the second aspect is, don't forget about variety. The more variety in your fruit and your vegetables, in your protein sources, in your fatty foods like eggs, nuts and seeds, avocados, olives, the more variety you have there, the more nutrients you get, and the more robust your health and mental performance is going to be. So variety is the key. And also, I always ask my clients, where do you get your calcium? It seems to be trivial, but calcium is actually needed to make your neurons communicate. Each time your neurons fire or try to transmit some information, you release calcium, and you need it in your blood, in your brain, like nonstop. And if you don't eat that calcium, that's going to come from your bones, and long term, it's going to translate, if you don't eat the calcium and all the calcium is taken from your bones, into all kinds of bone fractures and problems with your health, because bones are very important. And I recommend either eat a lot of yogurt for 500 milliliters a day, or canned seafood like canned sardines or salmon with bones, because those bones are calcium and a lot of other minerals. So variety, your calcium, and probiotics. That's why yogurt is so good. Gut health is one of the major things for your brain health. They are so intimately connected, and what happens in your gut will be reflected in your brain. So gut and brain health important. And what the data shows, people who eat probiotic rich foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, yogurts, kefirs, etc., naturally fermented foods every day, 1 or 2 servings, they have much better gut health than people who do not do that. So fiber is also important for your gut health, but it seems that eating those probiotic rich foods, that is a really gut health amplifier. It has much more profound effect than even fiber. Even though, to feed your gut bacteria, you do need to eat fiber, but eating probiotic rich food, that's like your gut health amplifier. So fruit and vegetables at every time, your protein rich food at every meal, every time you eat, your essential fats on a daily basis, fatty fish, those walnuts, variety in everything, where you get your calcium and probiotics. Those are kind of very simple guidelines. And again, each meal should have a lot of fruit and vegetables, should have some carbohydrate source. In most cases, that can be beans is one of the best, lentils, and then starchy tubers like potatoes, sweet potatoes, or whole grains like amaranth, quinoa, buckwheat, oats, whatever works for you. And then again, essential fats. That's how you structure each of your meals. And I always say, supplement, get a good quality multivitamin, multimineral to address all of your possible deficiencies that might come up. And omega-3 fatty acids, a supplement that is recommended by most health professionals, especially people who are into brain health, brain performance, right? So multivitamin, multimineral, and omega-3s. And that's basically it. That is a very simple way to eat, unless, again, you start eating a lot of processed foods. And the thing that happens when you eat a lot of processed foods, you start eating less and less of foods that are actually good for you. And that is a very, very detrimental effect on your health, especially over long term. So that's why I'm also concerned about people consuming some processed foods in their day. I'm like, when you eat these foods, you choose that instead of, let's say, carrots or berries or fruit. I choose eat whole foods, and whenever I need a snack or something, I feel I need something to eat, because I have a rule only whole foods, I always end up eating more fiber, more vitamins and minerals. And when you have an option to eat a cookie instead, guess what? You are not getting those nutrients that would in other case come from whole foods. And that whole trajectory, that's what bothers me a lot about eating all kinds of cookies and using that as your to-go snack. You're not snacking on carrots when you're snacking on cookies. And that's what I have against cookies, if you didn't notice. But other than that, guys, I love food. As a nutritionist and a health performance professional, I think that food should also love us back. We don't only should love our food and enjoy it, but it should also give back. And that's what whole foods do. They give back vitality, energy, performance, and this just feel good feeling. And that's it that I wanted to share with you about nutrition. I wanted to make you aware about the effects processed foods have on your stress levels, your anxiety levels, on your memory, learning, your energy and fatigue, your reward system and motivation for long-term projects, how the more processed foods you eat, those aspects get worse. If you need more data, more research, I'm more than happy, guys, to link to give you all this data. There's plenty by now. There is really good peer-reviewed studies or just really good observational studies that's been consistent for years and decades, right? So there's really good data about that. And then a simple guideline, that's what I wanted to give you, to eat healthy and balanced way for each meal. You eat your fruit and vegetables as much as possible. You eat your protein-rich foods. You eat your essential fats from things like, foods, normally protein-rich food especially have fats, but especially eggs, organ meats, salmon and other fatty fish, your nuts and seeds and avocados and olives and chia seeds and flax seeds. All of these have healthy fats, but walnuts are especially good for essential health that your body and brain cannot make, but you need to get them from food. And then we get the variety aspect. The more variety, the more nutrients. We got probiotics, gut health amplifier like no other. Probiotic rich foods, choose your favorite, eat it every day. Where you get your calcium, an important question. If you don't know, you probably don't eat enough, especially if you are not into dairy products. Supplement, multivitamin, multimineral, supplies both and omega-3 fatty acids, either algae oil or fish oil, 2 grams or more EPA and DHA combined amount also matters. If you have any questions, if you'd like me to guide you a little bit more through brain nutrition, through balanced nutrition in general, please schedule our call. It is available in the show notes, free of charge for you guys. Also in the show notes, now you find the link to my brand new newsletter with my brand new 3-part video series on mastering focus, motivation, and procrastination. Practical exercises that will at least double your ability to focus, to self-motivate, and to anti-procrastinate. So check out the link in the show notes, schedule our call, subscribe to my brainy newsletter, and if you have questions, reach out on all the social media, from TikTok to Instagram to LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. And have an awesome weekend. And maybe take a challenge, guys. Make this weekend when you enjoy food that also loves you back.